Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Ozan Unlu, who is the CEO and founder of EdgeDelta, which is an edge observability platform. Something really cool about Ozan is he was the CEO of the year in the 2024 GeekWire Awards, which was just recently won. He's done a lot of work. One of the things I love about his background is he went from basically code and an engineer on the tech side to solutions solutions architect would you say, all the way to salesperson to CEO. So really unique path in terms of getting there, and love what some of his content has in terms of how he identifies really good analogies of cost differentials with AI models. We're going to get into that today. Ozan, welcome. Happy to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. And I'm glad that you like our analogies because I think sometimes our internal team here at EdgeDelta gets a little tired of them. So, hopefully it's good that the first impression of the analogies are impressive and sound good.
You're like, I'm going to have my team listen to this shit and make sure that they embody it. No, it's good, man. Like analogies and stories are how it's like hardwired into us from a human nature perspective. Becomes very easy. So it's funny. That's one of the things that like I literally have started to integrate in all my sales processes, messaging, and like I'll explain something, but then I'll include the analogy like you did, and they're like, oh, that makes sense, right? Like it just helps people connect. So, anyways, sorry, team. I'm just being honest. Anyways, well, before we get rolling too deep, let's go into a revenue rundown of where you're at in the stage of the journey. So, where are you guys at in terms of like the revenue stage that you're at right now?
Yep. So we are a Series B company. We're just under about 100 people here. We raised $82 million. We are, more than doing a healthy double on revenue year over year. We have a SaaS observability product, and we hope to do that about another year and go raise our Series C.
Love it, man. Love it. So pretty fast growth that you're experiencing, and obviously you're VC back based on what you just told us. Like, I guess one of the things that we're going to talk about today is like how to make AI valuable while retaining margins. And like that's a hot button topic for a lot of folks because it's so easy to get sucked in from what I'm seeing to every tool, every capability. And if you're a more mature company trying to integrate AI in every part of your business, but if you do it recklessly, you'll go bankrupt, right? So I guess like, what's your thoughts on that in terms of like, let's just start off with the problem. Why do you think that's a problem of people making AI valuable while like really keeping their profitability tight?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at, we could start at the public markets, right? If you look at the public markets and you look at the publicly available financial data, any successful SaaS vendor or any successful software company is supposed to have between, let's say, 60 and 80% margins. And so if you look at how you're going to be using AI and all the various different corner cases and applications, you do have to ensure that at some point, it doesn't have to be at the beginning, it doesn't have to be when you're a seed stage company or when you're first building the product, but at some point you do have to show some sort of path to profitability and some sort of path to high margins, especially now more than ever. And with AI, with how expensive it can be per unit cost of data, depending on which industry you're in and depending on how much data is being created, you have to ensure that you are going to be building a sustainable business. And in doing so, you have to ensure that you're using AI in such a way that, margins are able to be retained and margins are able to be optimized for. And so I think AI has a tremendous amount of potential in a lot of various different businesses. I think there is going to be very few businesses that are unaffected or untouched by AI, but you do have to also look at it in, how do I ensure that I'm able to go and implement AI in a way that's also scalable without, being underwater.
Okay, love that, man. So, okay, first of all, let's define like when you're talking about AI, like what part of the business are you referring to, and like what are the use cases that you're talking about? Because I think that's very relevant because it's kind of like AI is turned into the term productivity or efficiency, right? Like it's a buzzword, right? It's just very generic. So, what do you mean by that? And love to hear your definition of it and then the applicability of it.
Yeah, I think when we talk about it internally, we look at, if you take software developers, for instance, you're going to have a new hire right out of college, if they went to college, and they're going to be a pretty junior developer. They're probably not going to have experience building things at scale. They're going to need some hand holding. They're going to need some mentorship. And let's take a live site production issue. We're in the observability space, right? The observability space specifically is how do you keep your mission critical systems up and running? So let's say you are some giant travel company and people go to your website to go book, car rentals and hotels and flights. And when your website goes down, you're losing $50,000 a minute or something crazy like that. In that case, when there is a live site issue, when your website does go down, maybe the junior developer will take 30 minutes to go identify the issue. And maybe a senior developer that has 15 years experience is going to take 10 times less time. Maybe they take only 3 minutes to go identify the issue. In that case, what we're looking at with AI is it's not so much that AI is going to automatically diagnose the issue, identify what the problem is, and build it back up again from a website perspective or your service. It's more that how do you make that junior engineer have the context and awareness and really that historical knowledge and mindset that the senior developer might have. So really it's about, when the iPhone came out and, we all turned into cyborgs, it's sort of like how do you kind of iterate on that, and all of a sudden AI can go predict and recommend things, and ultimately that human or that professional does get to decide or click the button or go, restart the service or whatever else. And so, that's how we fundamentally look at it internally. Is it's not so much replacing a person or replacing a role, it's very much augmenting what someone can do. And maybe for the person that's 30 years experience and they built the software themselves and they're running the service themselves, maybe it's only a small incremental improvement. But for all the other people that don't have context, if you can layer in AI to give you those insights, it can be extremely powerful.
Okay. So do you think it's more valuable for the junior folks than the senior folks as a whole, not just with the situation that you're talking about?
I think in general, let's take myself, for example. I used to be a software developer at Microsoft, and I was, pretty good at Microsoft. I was mediocre. I would say good. I wouldn't say great. I wouldn't say I was a superstar. My co-founder was absolutely the superstar. So when I look at it and I say, okay, how much could it help me versus how much could it help my co-founder Fatih? I think it could tremendously help Fatih. I do think for me, it goes from me being not able to write code or not able to build a certain piece of software to very quickly being fairly productive pretty quickly. Yeah, I think in a way it probably has a lot bigger changes or potential for the medium technical folk that necessarily aren't, writing software, have been writing code for many, many years. But yeah, I would say still very valuable to the senior people as well.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that, man, because like sometimes I see it and I haven't landed on the exact answer, right? And it probably is. The probably answer is it depends, right? You know what I mean? Because it's like there's use cases right now that I'm seeing personally that if the person doesn't have a certain level of competency, they can't unlock the uses or the quality that you need out of it. But then at the same time, there's some things that are very basic that you could turn a C player into a B plus player in a very short time. So it's like, I don't know if it's chicken or the egg or what, but it's one of those situations where I think it's still in flight. But I think your example makes a lot of sense that you gave. So let's move on to the profitability problem. So how do you solve the AI profitability problem with integrating AI into your product, your process, and make sure that you maintain, strong profitability margins?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at it in that what is a feature, what is a product that I can build that has that sustainable path to being able to use this at scale. So it's very easy on very small data sets. Let's say you had, a megabyte of data that you wanted to go analyze, and AI uses this concept of token or an input. And for a megabyte, you could probably just send that directly into any of the top models today, and it's not going to break the bank. And then let's say you think about, well, once I build this product, I'm actually going to be doing that not once a day, but once an hour. And then once we scale up, I'm going to be doing that once a second. Then it really does start to add up. And if we look at even 10, 15 years ago, specifically within our space, a gigabyte was a decent amount of data that you could analyze for a software service that was emitting data sets. And so, for those not in software, for those not in observability, a gigabyte is probably like going to be 2 or 3 CDs worth from a DVD perspective, or something along those lines, right? So, I think if you look at the amount of data being created today, the equation changes, and it changes a lot. And then it gives you a requirement that you need to be able to pre-process and pre-curate data sets before you can go feed them in for inference. And so I think that's going to be a huge market in the future, is how do you pre-process, pre-compute, and curate these various different data sets to go feed them into models? And that's an area that, for us, we've been working on for a couple of years.
So basically, is it kind of the equivalent to just sifting out what you really truly need instead of just dumping everything in there?
Absolutely. I think you have to be very thoughtful and proactive about, at scale, in real time, when this thing is going to be charging me and it's going to be working for me every single second. How do I go set that up in a sustainable way so that I don't just get blown out by the bill at the end of the month?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So let's flip sides of the house now. So that's talking more on the data side, which I think makes a lot of sense. Now let's shift over to the human capital side. I guess, like, what would you say or I guess, how have you approached it organizationally in terms of integrating AI into your team and your people?
Yeah, I would say it hasn't had too much of an effect when it comes to numbers. I think it has had an effect when it comes to productivity or efficiency. I'm not necessarily intimately involved in looking over the shoulder of every single developer at our company. But that being said, not only for, our own product and integrating it there, but also just for, the way that they're using their ID, or they're using AI within their development practices to go accelerate the things that they're doing. I think we have seen that effect in a pretty big way. So I would
Okay.
say, touching, Ryan, on your previous point, which is, hey, you still have to have the context. You still have to have the understanding as a human to what is the business, what are we trying to accomplish, and what is the long-term objective, what are the long-term things within the product we want to build. I think when you layer in AI, it does have a potential to very much accelerate that for the humans working with AI. I think replacing any individual role, even one or two of them, I think we're still quite a bit away from.
So how much productivity have you seen boost, like ballpark, any kind of percentage you're seeing on the dev side?
Well, I would say the combination of just us maturing as a company and organization, in combination with using things like Copilot to go accelerate our development, I would say the combination of those two things probably at least double. We have probably doubled the amount of features and the efficiency and the speed at which we can develop within our organization internally.
Love
So
it.
that's what I would hope people would be able to get, is at least a healthy double on how fast they can go develop.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome on the dev side. What about on, like, the go to market side? Have you made that a priority, deployed any kind of, like, enterprise strategy on, like, let's say, sales and marketing?
I think so. I mean, I think being able to bounce ideas off of these LLMs is something you should be doing on a consistent basis. So whether it's marketing and saying, hey, what does this sound like? Or, one thing I try to do at least once a month is go ask ChatGPT to go, take a look at our website, and actually tell me, like, what do you think we're trying to say on the website based on all the copy and our messaging. Same thing with some other models that can be a little bit more recent in the website version that they're using, not just kind of caching your website from 3 months ago. But I think that is very valuable, as well as just the ability to go consolidate down very large amount of insights or lists and try to give you some insight into what you're doing there. When it comes to actual outreach, like, hey, let's go set up these automated bots to go, hit up all these people. I think, there have been, so we're here in Seattle, and there's a very successful company here in Seattle called Outreach. And
Yeah.
for those in sales, they know Outreach about sequences and whatever else. And Outreach has actually been so successful in doing that it has actually desensitized us in being able to go and say, hey, I need to go read every single email. Nobody reads every single email anymore, right? Everyone gets a lot of spam. They get hit up. If you are a person making buying decisions, you're going to be getting hit up even more. And so I believe that using AI specifically for more of that repetitive bot-based sequencing, I think it has a long way to go before we're able to accept that again. I think people do want to be contacted, and people do want to hear from businesses when they feel like the business has done their homework. When they feel like, hey, like you're reaching out to me because you specifically analyzed my profile. You said you read an article that I wrote, and you actually think with your heart of hearts that it is a very good conversation that we could have. AI, I think, could be effective at doing that. But at the end of the day, I think you, again, much like on the developer side, you have to use it in conjunction with your own experience and in conjunction with, I think, your own judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point, man. I think it's funny because most people, I was just talking to someone about this the other day, and they're talking about like the AI SDR, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good business model. And the reason why is it's just like accelerating spam. So effectively, in like 6 months from now, you're going to have like AI generated gatekeepers to make sure that people are warding off all these like spam bots that are out there, even if it's a little more customized. I don't know if that's really going to be the route to go, because there's going to be so much more of it, you know?
Yeah, and then your customers are going to be having AI bots to talk to your AI bot, right? So
Well,
I
yeah,
think
that's what I was talking about,
it's
right? Like an AI.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's an arms race, right?
Yeah. So, but Eric, talking about what you're referring to, like I know you guys organizationally work with a lot of big companies, and one of the cool things that I've kind of discovered is basically in terms of that customization and doing your homework, like a process that used to take 35, 40 minutes of looking at the annual report, the letter from the CEO, the 10K, the key risks in the 10K, all that. Now, like, I figured out a way where basically you could type in a single prompt and do that 40 minutes of research in effectively like 30 seconds. And it's better than if someone did it manually, because they're just going through most of the crap, right? So I think like there's use cases like that a lot of people walk by, that make it really, really easy and actionable, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Sometimes when I'm really reading some of those financial reports and it starts getting boring, your mind starts to wander, and then you realize that you haven't even retained the last 4 sentences your eyes tracked over, right? So I think you're absolutely right. It totally makes sense, and also, if you look at that, it's a very similar problem to observability, right? Which is each individual data point, each individual size of data, whether it's a, a word in a log or whether it's a word on a financial report, on its own is not that valuable. So that, for instance, you want to take your very valuable human computing power and actually read every single word and really think about it. And so your example is perfect. It's a very good analogy, actually, for the observability space, which is, every single individual word on its own is not that valuable, but cohesively, I do want to get a good sense for all of these words or all of these logs or all of these
mhm.
data sets. I do want to get the full picture, whereas it might take me an hour or 3 hours, AI can do it in 10, 15 seconds, in which case, yes, it can be extremely valuable in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good call. Like another one that you have me thinking about, since you're talking about like with observability and how to look at the specific data. Like one of the use cases that I came across was basically looking at taking all your sales calls, the transcriptions from your sales calls. You could even break them into wins and losses, right? In terms of the entire sales process. And then you could create almost like a language guide that your buyers versus the people that didn't buy actually use, the questions they ask. And you can create marketing copy for it. You can create sales scripts. You can create product development for it. And it's super simple and it can be done really fast. But like, once again, you use too much data, too broad over too many areas, you're not going to get the juice for the squeeze, right? So that's one of the things that I come to mind from a use perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we use that internally, and I think sometimes it's really funny when you're in a Zoom meeting, you've been having the discussion for 45 minutes, and you end the meeting and you feel good about it, and you go look over at the AI assistant, and you're like, wait a second, I didn't cover a lot of the topics that I thought I'd covered, or at least it wasn't prevalent enough for AI to believe that it was memorable or it should take a note on that. So I think also sometimes it just allows you to gut check, much like the example of, having AI look at your website and say, okay, what is the cohesive message that you're getting from all of this copy? A lot of times you are very low level, whether it's on your website and it's the copy on the website, or whether you're in a meeting and you're discussing something in detail, it's really great for someone to be able to zoom out and say, okay, from everything you talked about in that 45-minute meeting, here are the high level summaries, or here are the high level analysis that we did. And if what you're talking about and your most important initiatives do not make it in that summary, then maybe you need to rethink the way that you're doing the meeting.
True. Very true, man. Love that. So what's your favorite personal use case of it? Then like in what's your go-to tool? Is it like ChatGPT? Is it Cohere? Is it Gemini, Copilot? What's your go-to?
We use a lot internally here. So I would say for me personally, I think ChatGPT has, a certain level of quality that puts it amongst the top for sure. We are happy OpenAI customers. And then, I've been using Perplexity a lot as well. I saw recently they had a pretty big round that they announced, which is not surprising because I think the way that Perplexity does it and kind of gives you the various different sources as hyperlinks as well to say, hey, we are actually drawing from these various different sources to give you this answer, and it's not just potentially hallucinating. I mean, it could still be hallucinating, but I think that ability to pinpoint specific sources and even let you click and jump into them is something that Perplexity has done quite well for quite some time. And I think even recently this concept of RAG, which has been getting a lot more I would say traction in the AI side, is something that I think Perplexity does quite well.
Yeah, I think so. And as a CEO, let's take one step further. I love Perplexity, by the way, for research. It's really, I think it's so solid, right? With that, what's your favorite ChatGPT use case, and then what's your favorite Perplexity use case?
My gosh, I think
as a CEO, let's take it as a CEO. Like, what's your favorite use case, man?
Yeah, so I would say so we even use it in production in our product. So we released a product called On-Call AI, and On-Call AI will actually do some of this analysis on data around anomalies and around potential production issues. So frankly, just seeing that even internally, how we use that on our own data sets and own services is pretty awesome. I think for me personally, again, going back to the example of the website, right? We talk a lot about our brand and how we're viewed in the industry, and we do a lot of really unique things in our product that nobody else in the world is doing. And so do those things come across? And if they don't come across to GPT that's reading your website, or Perplexity that's reading your website, then it's probably not going to come across to the other person that is just browsing your website and trying to understand, is this the right tool for me? So I would say that is probably my top use case there. For Perplexity, I would say traditionally, it has been with things that are much more recent. So recent things that have happened, recent events. It's a very good, I think, tool for a lot more recency and a lot more things that are either news based or understanding, hey, what is the current sentiment in the market around X, Y, and Z? That traditionally I've used Perplexity more for.
Okay, love that, man. Well, we are up on time, unfortunately. Where can people find you? Where can they find more about EdgeDelta? And then we'll wrap it from there.
Yeah, so EdgeDelta.com, just as it sounds, it's spelled that way. So we're very excited for the things that we're doing within observability. We have this concept of continuous inference, which is really for these large data sets. Some of our large customers do petabytes of data that are being created every single day.
Wow.
And so, if you have a large scale, if you have a lot of data and you are in observability trying to understand how do I actually make AI work at this scale, come talk to us. It's something that we're pretty passionate about. And I'm always up for a conversation. So very excited to talk to them. And Ryan, I really appreciate you having me here. And so hope to come back next time.
Yeah, man. Appreciate having you on. Love nerding out on everything AI. We went down the observability data track, which I love. So appreciate you being on the show, man, and sharing your insights. Thank you for being on today, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Ryan.